Hello and welcome to Show Studio for day 2 of Milan Menswear. We're about to watch the Prada Menswear show live. First of all, we'll introduce everybody. I'm Mandi, Lennard. I run a consultancy called Mandi's Basement.
My name's Tobin. I'm a fashion retail consultant.
My name's Hilary Alexander. I'm a freelance writer and consultant.
My name's Borkett and I'm a stylist.
My name's Jess Bumpus and I'm fashion features editor at vogue.co.uk.
I think as we're going to wait for the guests to arrive at the show, and it's going to inevitably be a little bit later than scheduled, I thought it'd be good because you've just come out of Graduate Fashion Week, Hilary, haven't you? And you're very involved in that.
Yeah,
and I think what a lot of people don't realise is that, you know, I've worked with you for many years, and you have really been very, very supportive of young designers for a national newspaper. Where I don't want to insult you, but when it rains you're supposed to write about raincoats. For you to really take an interest and support young talent, I think it'd be great if you can maybe give us a little insight on what Graduate Fashion Week was this year and how significant it is in the big picture of the young designers' careers.
I actually went to the very first one, which was 22 years ago at the Islington Business Design Centre, and I was just blown away because I think even then there were already something like 20 colleges showing and catwalk shows, and it's just grown and grown and grown over the years. And the one that just finished a few weeks ago, Earls Court 2, we had 40 colleges from all around the UK, 16 colleges from 11 countries around the world, and everyone gave talks and presentations from Victoria Beckham to Show Studio. And London College of Fashion were involved in the photographic exhibit. Louise Wilson from Central St Martin's was at the gala.
It sounds very democratic.
Well, it is. And I mean, for me, the thing that I've always loved is that it's not just the colleges in London, which I know are great. We all know about Central St Martin's and Kingston and Ravensbourne and London College of Fashion. But Graduate Fashion Week shows you work which goes from Edinburgh all the way down to the West Country. And so you can really see different kind of cultural influences and patterns, and you get knitwear from Nottingham Trent and textiles coming through from Northumbria, and I mean it's completely and utterly fantastic.
I think that a lot of the students that are watching, because we have a very wide audience at Show Studio, I think they would really want to ask. Central St Martin's and Royal College of Art get so much attention. If you are with a regional college, which so many of them are very, very good now, and a lot of the tutors are people who I've dealt with as journalists and have you. How do you make yourself visible if you're not at Central St Martin's and Royal College of Art and London College of Fashion?
Well, I think today, it's the digital age, and it's very easy to set up your own website, to tweet, to go on Instagram, Facebook. There's a million ways of getting your name and your style and your designs out there, which certainly there wasn't available to students, say, 20 years ago.
So you can create a brand much sooner now?
I think so. And also for students taking part in Graduate Fashion Week, their college has got an exhibition stand, they can be on the catwalk, they can get mentoring advice, they can talk to people like Victoria Beckham or Henry Holland who come and give presentations on how to get going, what to do, if you're setting up a brand, or people give talks on other careers, because it's not all just about having your name on a label. The industry is worth £21 billion a year in the UK, and there's a huge need for people to be pattern cutters or merchandisers, buying directors, packaging design, digital print, computer graphics. There's a million things you can do in fashion.
Yeah, because I know lots of people that went to St Martin's and LCF, but I also know people that went to like Nottingham Trent. They went on to work at Givenchy and then Dior, and it's like if you've got the talent and the ability to kind of push yourself, it doesn't matter about that. Because
and the thing is also headhunters come to Graduate Fashion Week. We had people from Ralph Lauren and Donna Karan, Abercrombie and Fitch, all the big high street brands, Kenzo. They all come because they're looking sometimes for different things. If they want knitwear, then they really want to see what's happening at Nottingham Trent.
Isn't that interesting though, that you're talking about friends that go and work for the big fashion houses, because actually wouldn't that be a better route if you want to become a fashion designer, to have that experience? So in a way, the designers at some of the big colleges, that I think they just bore their tutors senseless when they say, I want my own label. They don't think of the real world and the actual idea that you can go and learn fantastic artisan skill and experience with a designer. So those designers are probably taking a better route by going to work.
I think that's just the way forward for anything. It's like, if you're really, you can be somewhere else where you can be like with Riccardo Tisci in like a room with him, learning from his experience, or John Galliano or anyone like that. It's like what I did with when I assisted Edward. It was kind of like
Edward Annenfall,
who I was with for a long time and still am. It's like, that's the best teacher that I could have, and learning from him and seeing what he's seen and who he works with is a brilliant.
Well, I always say when we have interns helping us in my office, even if they just sat there and listened for 3 months, they're going to learn so much without even doing anything, because you pick up everything.
Yeah, sort of by osmosis.
I was a buyer on the shop, a glorified shop assistant as a buyer at Brown's, and actually I was feeding the whole epicenter of the industry just by being there. Jess, there must be incredible pressure on Vogue.com when the shows are on, because the schedule now in all the cities is so punishing. How on earth do you cope with all the writers getting their reviews in? Because it's not just people like us who are looking at your reviews, it's actually manufacturers, people who are simply interested in fashion. How many people do you have covering the men's shows?
Well, with menswear, we sort of do an edit on it. With womenswear, obviously, we're covering it kind of very fully. And yeah, as you say, the schedule is pretty grueling. But we've kind of got a well-oiled machine now, so we kind of know what we're doing. And also, obviously, there are certain designers that we'll be covering because they're the biggest, and people want to see what's being said about those. But then we have sort of other features whereby we can pick up on others that we want to flag, but perhaps it's not right to completely do a review yet. So sort of we have different features for different things.
I know that one of the things that Vogue.com has always done, unlike a lot of the other newswires, is that when young designers start out, if, let's say, someone can't go to the show, if you provide images, I know that you've been incredibly supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's what we did with Graduate Fashion Week for the second year. This time we put all the graduate images up, which is obviously great for the students. And yeah, I really like to support graduate talent as well, and I think we really want to be there to support designers, and it's great that we can put up as many images as possible, and it just becomes, well, it makes us a brilliant reference point, because we've got this going back like 10 years of catwalk imagery, so for students it's a great resource as well.
When did you celebrate the 10-year anniversary?
We had 15, which was I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago now. I lose count, but we will celebrate our 21st anniversary when Vogue celebrates its 100th. So that's a nice...
Because you forget that the whole online newswires have only been visible for a good 10 years, really, and it's the next generation already.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember when I was writing for Telegraph when we first launched the website, and that is going back a horrific amount of years. There was a photograph of Stella Tennant wearing that Chanel bikini with the double C on here, and that was how we were able to gauge the number of hits, because everyone zeroed. We used that bit, and it got like over 1 million hits.
And the editor of the main newspaper supported this?
Oh yes, yeah. It gave us a lot of hits.
Yeah. I think you have to think like that now as well, how things look. I mean, when I first when there was first the option of online, I think it was someone who worked with you who's gone to assist Susie Menkes now.
Oh, Natasha, yeah.
Natasha started doing features just online, and as a PR, you were always, you've got to get it in the newspaper. Yeah. And I remember in 1 week, she did 3 features that weren't in the paper, but she did 3 features for things that I was working on. And I remember seeing it mushroom around the internet just from the visibility online. It was quite incredible, the power now of having that portal.
I think in some respects it can be even more important than being in a newspaper or a magazine. It's certainly more instantaneous. And once it goes online, then people start tweeting, or they put it on Facebook, and it just begins to spiral.
That's the exciting parts of PR, actually. Jack, when you see these shows, all these menswear shows, I mean, this is your your
Yeah.
period of the season, isn't it, when you
Yeah.
must get really excited.
Yeah.
Do you start to envisage what shoots you're going to do for the next season? Is it a particular outfit that you see in a show, a look, or
I
is it?
think it's, you know, just generally the way it is, you know, things excite you more than others. I think, yeah, definitely you look at something and it will be like, say like, I don't know, Prada or Givenchy or something like that, you'll see that something's done, or the way that it's put together, if it's all leather, or, you know, if there's a lot of plaid, then the idea will develop from that that's what the stories will be. You know, before we've done like lots of grunge stories, because, you know, Marc Jacobs is very that 90s grunge, so that will come from that, or, you know, Givenchy was very hard, so, you know, then it would be, you know, a biker or a motorcyclist or something like that. So yeah, it kind of all
What about
stems
if
from
there's something that you pick up on that maybe the magazine doesn't pick up on? Do you have to sell that to the magazine? Do you feel strongly that they should do a story with a certain theme because it's something that's been sparked by you seeing a certain show?
Yeah, I think it's up to me what I would want to pull from that, and that would, you know, ultimately that's probably more interesting for them, is to have like a different perspective. If everyone, you know, is doing leather and then I see like florals from that, then yeah.
Or floral leather.
Yeah, do the both. You can have really camp motorcyclists.
And Jack, I wanted to talk to you actually about the whole e-commerce with menswear, because I have a kind of issue at the moment in my head between some of these incredible online boutiques like Okini, LNCC. I know they have a store, but they're predominantly an online business. And then you have the department stores. And I just wondered, how difficult is it when you see a new label that you want to sell in your store, which almost like encompasses the spirit of the season, but maybe the customer isn't familiar with yet? How difficult is that to educate a customer?
I think it's
by
possibly
introducing a new label.
It's possibly easier to showcase it online just by the fact that you've got imagery to support it, and the fact that you can show it on a body, and you can show maybe some of these more avant-garde pieces in that light. Whereas on a rail, just, you know, surrounded by a lot of very well-known familiar brands, it could potentially get lost or look, you know, confusing to the consumer. So I think online is a good platform, but I don't think it's necessarily growing as fast for men as it is for women, and women seems to be kind of moving forwards leaps and bounds. I'm not sure if men are buying in that style yet. I mean, I know myself that I am very much, you know, a fashion buyer, but I still wouldn't buy online because I still like to engage with the product, feel it, see what the fit's like. And menswear is a lot about fit as well, so I think you're kind of, you know, losing that in translation online as well.
And then I thought, the show's not starting quite yet, but I thought I'd throw a quote at you by Malcolm McLaren from 1975. I was reading Paul Gorman's blog this morning. He's a brilliant writer. He was from Tommy Roberts' days, Mr. Freedom. And I just wanted to see your responses to this, really. He said, because of the economic crisis, people are trying to consume as fast as possible. Ideas are dead. There aren't any to express the mood. Fashion is irrelevant. And I just found that quite interesting that he said that in 1975, because every season journalists seem to pick up on this thing and say there's no ideas, everyone's regurgitating, blah-de-blah. And I just wondered whether that, how you would feel about that, Jack, because you're obviously on the front line going to see these shows every season.
Yeah, I think they must be saying that just every time then, because there's been so many ideas since then. 80s, the 90s, Marc Jacobs, the grunge. Obviously people are going to look back and, you know, compare it to something else that's happened. I think the last couple of seasons have been kind of a bit dry in comparison to what we've seen before, but yeah, I think people like Prada are incredible, and Marc Jacobs, and, you know, they're kind of setting the standard, and I think a lot of people kind of are always going to look back to people like them, because she's very new in what she's thinking and what she's doing, and that's always really exciting. But yeah, I think since the 70s we've seen a lot of exciting stuff, so I don't know if I would necessarily believe that quote.
And I think that whenever there's an economic, whenever the economy is tough, people get much more creative and the new ideas are sparked, aren't they, Hilary?
Looking back at the graduate collections,
they have to try harder.
In the CMSR in London at the moment, and the menswear that we're seeing then is the most exciting that I think we've ever we've seen.
Do you know what else it was with that menswear? Did you go to any of the menswear shows?
I went to the
London
exhibition.
ones.
And I saw some of the movies. Yeah.
The thing that hit me was the sensory experience. It wasn't just what you were seeing, it was the experience. Topman took over that pub and had all the hamburgers named after all the fashion designers. There was lots of fun things going on, and the whole spirit of it. And everyone was welcoming.
And they did the show at Lord's Cricket Ground.
Yeah, there were lots of exciting satellite events.
Brought in heritage and
there was that fantastic Hood by Air event in Selfridges. And I remember I was at one show with Louise Gray, and we were loving all the menswear, but we didn't want a women's version. We wanted the women's for ourselves to wear. And I actually said to her, look, why don't you show at Men's Week? Do your women's at Men's Week. But obviously she could do a more pared down, but it could be an interesting concept. It was what was seductive was the spirit of the week. You could, if you were part of it, that can't not touch you, because it was such a positive. I think they've done very, very well with that.
I think that's actually interesting what you're saying about you didn't want women's versions of those pieces, because that's something that's actually definitely in buyers' minds, that they know that women will buy from those men's collections. And some designers are starting to kind of tap into that more so. I mean, I know Joanna Sykes did her second season at Nicole Fari, and she sent a couple of women down the catwalk, but not in their own women's looks, in the men's looks.
And I love that when I see that on the show.
Yeah.
I love buying menswear myself, I have to say. It's,
All the people that I know, like I know a girl that works at Givenchy Menswear, and she's kind of the whole image of that kind of menswear, and she always wears the menswear, and I love like that androgynous woman. And I think that's really, sexy, is to have a woman in like a...
Which is touching fashion at the moment, because the
like
whole
Coco
skinny
Chanel did
trouser.
that years ago, she put on a suit and it was like, oh my goodness, but
And Helmut Lang, if you remember, when women were buying, the menswear outfits, the same as they did with Hedy Semaine, they bought suits.
I bought a lot of that Dior One collection for that reason. The check shirts. I wanted that look for me, and I found it very frustrating because the pants weren't right for a woman to wear. But I could get that look with the shirts and the t-shirts and all the other
Saint
things.
Laurent now as well, the most recent men's collection. Every look, your woman could wear it.
Yeah.
It's kind of crosses over. It's even in the size of a woman.
You were saying about the 90s, because I went round the exhibition and there was a young chap who's just, funny you should mention Graduate Fashion Week, because he won the menswear prize at Graduate Fashion Week 2 years ago.
Who was that?
Tom Crisp. And then he's just finished his 2 years MA at Royal College, and this was his debut collection, and it was all prints inspired by rave, and really for men, but really loud and almost a bit like sort of skateboarding, but a bit more sophisticated. And you were thinking to yourself, heavens above, it was so well done.
When was this?
Just
because in the
London
Versace show yesterday, there was a bit of a fluoro thing going on for a few looks in the middle of it, where I kind of got quite excited at one point when that came out.
What were those stickers?
There was the makeups, the tape on the arms of the makeup, but when they were wearing sheer pieces, you could see those colours coming through.
Yeah.
But there were actually some fluoro pieces that came out in like red and yellows and orange, and it was very vibrant. And of course, Craig Green at the Man Show was phenomenal, seemed to blow everyone away.
I saw another collection, United Working, I think, or something, but everything on his stand was bright pink, really, really bright pink. But one of the mannequins was holding a handbag. I mean, not a handbag, a man bag, a man bag, and it was printed on the front, also available in navy. And I just thought that was such a clever thing to do.
He's going to go far.
He is.
But it's funny what you were saying about the regurgitating of ideas, because actually, reading some of the reviews of the Prada menswear last season, I think Tim Blank said that actually it looked like Miuccia Prada had gone back to her earlier menswear, but she has got this knack, we don't know how she does it, where it always looks fresh and new, and the colour palettes are so phenomenal, and there's no new colours in them, but the way she works with colour, I mean, that menswear last season, I mean, I think the first outfit, I'm sure you probably had a peek this morning just to refresh for this, but that first outfit that came out last Prada menswear for this winter, that was a shirt sticking out of pants, kind of looked like it hadn't even been looked at, had the once over before it went on the runway, a very plain sweater, but it looked great.
She's quite good though at doing that thing whereby like one season, and like with women's wear as well, one season it'll be sort of more overtly out there, and then the next season it'll be sort of more normal, so you're constantly kind of trying to work out what she's doing. But like it was a good precursor for the women's wear, because again everyone sort of thought that with the women's wear she had revisited and gone back to sort of her more typical Prada silhouettes and shapes.
Yeah, it's very Olivia Rizzo in the way that it's kind of undone. Like the men's was very undone, you know, it kind of looked like they'd been dressed and then kind of pulled apart, and the women's was kind of that, you know, the dress
falling off one shoulder,
It was a bit, you know, freshly like you'd had a bit of fun in a barn or something.
With the women's though, it kind of was a bit slutty. I mean, I like that, but with the men's, it looked so easy, but not easy in a casual kind of, because they did say that some of the influence was 60s. You know, you're watching a movie where a 60s movie, but it's like the whole scene of the movie is inside someone's home. It was those kind of clothes, but you couldn't get away from that modernity of what she was putting out there. Also, I thought what was interesting was the whole idea of the stage set with Mucha Prada, because it was Rem Koolhaas's Oma designers that did the stage set. And interestingly, 12 pieces that were suggested from that stage set are being produced by Knoll, and they're going to come out when the collection goes in the stores, I mean unconnected with Prada, but I thought that was a really nice touch. Whereas in London we have Burberry, who the Burberry Prorsum show, the collections are available straight away. I think for the next season, I say next season, but it's probably available now because they said that it would go online quite quickly, but there's going to be a personalisation service as well. And at what point does it get a bit too much? At what point is it a bit too clever?
Well, I think that they're both comparable, and you know, they're two huge powerhouses, and it's that fine line of being kind of, they're both, you know, hugely commercial, but what Prada's doing is being hugely commercial but are still having kind of a lot of integrity to it and seeming very highbrow, whereas Burberry's crossed over that line into becoming commercial but very transparent, and it seems too obvious now as well, and then that's when they lose their kind of cool, and then the consumer starts to see that. So I think personalisation, I think that's been done to death, and also I mean, how personal is it, you know, just putting your name on something.
Tailors in Savile Row have been doing that for centuries.
Exactly.
And isn't the whole point of it being personal the fact that you don't really, you know, you would go into the store and then it would be an experience with you and the tailor, or you picking out the piece.
That's very true.
The whole point of it being personal, not necessarily the fact that you're going to go online and write, you know, Jack Borkett into the back of it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even feel the need to tell somebody. It's that kind of, not smugness, but that kind of pride that, oh, it's got my name in it. And then also the idea that if you did tell someone, it's like, oh, that's, I don't need to tell, why do I need to tell somebody? This is very precious and personal to me.
Yeah, it's true. I know people that work in tailors now, and it's like people come in and it's like, you know, a message that they would write in the inseam of like the pocket that no one else would know to their friend or whatever, you know, like the Queen did before. Philip, you know, fuck you or whatever in Prince Charles's suit or whatever that was. You know, that's a personal thing.
You can always get your mum to do one of those
School
diamonds and stick it in the back.
So, so what are we hoping for from this show? I'm quite excited about it, actually. You know, it's
that looks like Prada. The back of the catwalk.
I think it is.
You know, the little skinny door where they come out. There's two sides.
Yeah.
It's a shame we can't see everyone sitting down, because it's always nice spotting people, you know.
I think
seeing what they're all wearing.
I think so. I think last season was kind of normal,
and
which means this season
was so normal.
But she made a point of saying she wanted this normality.
Yeah, you're right.
To
clothes
the
that people could actually wear.
And I love it when designers do that, because they're showing confidence, but they're not bragging about it. I think you have to be confident to be able to make a decision to do a collection like that.
Definitely.
Well, from my experience of design, it is much harder because subtlety, and to get that across, you know, you can do a huge statement, but doing what she did last season, and you know, she said it was about the banality of life, and having that come across in the clothes, but still make all of those pieces so desirable and wearable.
Desirable, yeah.
But really, I thought what was exceptional was the colour palette, because those colours were so considered, and you know, you can see these are, you know, so-called normal banal choices, but actually, you know, it's been her and a team of people with incredible eyes and minds deciphering over those colours and those details and those cuts for, you know, months. So
the other thing that I thought was quite interesting about the last collection was that you didn't feel you needed to buy a whole look. It sold the pieces to you. And as a buyer, does that help with you how you would buy a collection like that?
Definitely. That I think that brands that are starting to do that now, rather than total look, is a much cleverer way of doing it, because really that's the way people shop now as well. In the pieces, and
it's a bit distasteful to rock up
do
in the
total
latest look, isn't it?
Straight off the
I'm
catwalk.
embarrassed.
There are people that do that, and that we see a type of clientele that come in and say that everybody has access to style.com or Vogue, and they want to see these looks, so they'll say have you got look 12 from Givenchy, because I want that whole look. And they want the look, and actually as a buyer
they're so savvy now, the customers.
They are the buyer, so they tell you that, and then you can actually buy that look because you've already sold it, so to speak, so it's not a risk in any way.
We were talking yesterday about Chris Gibbs at Union in LA. He's got a fabulous store with a lot of those luxury, he's a whole raft thing, but he's got a lot of the Japanese labels like Visvim and what have you. And even when he's in his buying appointment, he's blogging. He's putting stuff on his website so that actually his customers can tell him what they want. He doesn't do it because of that. He's doing that because he's actually enthusiastic and loving the whole thing. But actually, that's a very clever way of the customer engaging with the brand before he's even done his buying figures.
Yeah. And it's fueling the anticipation, because they've probably already seen perhaps the catwalk show or images on style.com or Vogue, and then their favourite store, or the buyer for their favourite store, is now blogging saying, look guys, I've just placed an order for this.
And creating a connection.
Creating, an expectation, an excitement level. And then the next moment is when it arrives in store.
Yeah.
And you go and get it.
Yeah.
And you know what? If it's late, as a customer, you don't mind. The one thing you want to know is that the moment it hits, you get it. So if you order something and you see someone else in it, you're uncomfortable because you ordered it. But if the production doesn't arrive until a certain date, that's okay, as long as you got it when it was ready. There's lots of things that help that journey, doesn't it, until things arrive. So when OMA do that furniture, the idea that it's not going to be available until winter, that's part of the anticipation, and I think that's much cooler in a way than, it's going to be available as soon as the show's over, we've got a pop-up shop and you can help yourself.
And that's kind of like almost, we've had that for so long, the sort of oversaturation. It's quite nice to then just slow things down a bit, because I think a lot of people always comment on the, the speed of fashion and fashion.
Look, I think we're off. We're off.
And it's go. Well, the stage set is beautiful, isn't it? It's nice to see the simple jacket. I think in the last show, she had that rockabilly velvet collar detail, which even on a simple one-button jacket made it seem so casual and easy.
And that looks like a floral, doesn't it? Almost a 60s, 70s kind of floral action going on in the shirts.
And the soundtrack is wonderful already, isn't it?
The print's great.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
With pinstripe.
Yeah,
that was a fine pinstripe, wasn't it? Yeah.
That looks similar. The trousers look a similar colour from last season.
Yeah. And she's done the rubber like she did.
Yeah, she's done the rubber border. Because last season they were very classic brogues, but she added a big chunky base to make them seem new. They actually look like old school Palladium, the shoes.
Or sort of a kind of high-tech diving shoe. You know how guys were going scuba? Yeah. But the print is wonderful.
Beautiful, really beautiful.
I think print's like such a huge thing now. I think everyone's trying to get in on that print thing, because I think, it's
Are you
so
buying a lot more
distinct.
print now, Jack?
For men, definitely, yeah.
And that's like a boxing.
And we have a girl.
Yeah. Same print.
That's very lovely.
Same collection, but a women's, isn't it, that one?
Yeah. That reminds me a bit Miu Miu with the collection with the bird print with the
Embellishments.
And the,
yeah.
And I think she adds a nice dimension to the fact it's a men's show. She's the right interlude to showcase the men's. As long as there's not another 5 of them.
that print's really Balenciaga as well. The men's did that kind of Hawaiian print on black. It's very like that.
And if you think that this is coming out, when's it going to go in the stores? January for summer? Is that right, Jack?
Yeah, about January. I'm just really intoxicated by this print, actually. I'm trying to think of the right kind of reference
I think
point
Hawaii.
for
Yeah, I
it.
was going to say, I feel like it's quite Hawaiian, but it's very, very rich as well.
But it has, the coloration has kind of like a sense of like upholstery to it.
Yeah,
or something
definitely.
like
And yes, there's a sort of hibiscus and a kind of
Yeah.
bougainvillea.
But the music even now is very...
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sort of
can-
thinking Havana.
I'm thinking Palm Springs.
Yeah, or Palm Springs en route to Havana, you know. Rat Pack.
Yeah.
In some fabulous 60s house in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
It's funny, all those parties, those pool parties when it's Coachella, they all take place in those famous movie stars' homes.
Yeah, like Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, and
Well, I think
Elvis.
it's
Yeah. I've been in Elvis's jacuzzi. I think always with Prada there's a real purity to what they're putting out. And like you say, the whole team have deliberated over every nuance in that show.
And I think it's like you were saying what the stylist sees before. It's like the idea of a pinstripe suit is very strict and business, and then
the floral
Hawaiian
skirt,
shirt,
Hawaiian
opposite
shirt,
attracts,
yeah.
so then to put them together is,
Probably twice the price.
yeah.
And then there's a webbing belt. Sometimes it's two-tone, sometimes it's all one. That strange oxblood colour.
Yeah.
Oh, in fact, it's like your
Jumper.
that almost.
Maroon.
Yeah, but it's more
There's been quite a
orangey.
bit of the maroon in the show so far,
Yeah.
actually.
It's interesting because that was actually like a really strong trend from the women's wear like in the previous seasons. Seems to be hanging around a lot.
It's very painterly how she uses the colour in this one, because
Yeah.
actually if you imagine the outfit being the canvas, there's details of colour, almost like the outfit's been painted once it's been put on the model.
And those cases are almost like carry-on case, aren't they, rather than a briefcase.
It's a very clever runway because actually it looks like they're going off-piste the whole time.
Really beautiful colours again.
Yeah.
I love, I'm really into very silky kind of like fluid fabrics with men as well. I think it looks great.
Yeah.
It looks lovely.
It's kind
Even
of more
shorts.
Even short.
but it feels more masculine, doesn't it, than a kind of fluid fabric for men traditionally.
Yeah, it doesn't come across camp. But I think it's also interesting as well that you're not looking at it as like a whole look, which I think is really boring. I think a lot of designers now are forcing you to, you know, Celine, you have to shoot it as it is, you know. It's
Oh,
like,
that's dreadful,
I
yeah.
don't know, you know, Celine, Givenchy, all of those, you know, it's like you know, it's how it is, you can't mix it, Saint Laurent is the same. And this is kind of, you know, more inspiring than that, because you're just getting the idea that maybe it's nice to put a print shirt under a jumper and you see that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
and a
that.
short sleeve
Yeah.
jumper with a long
And you
sleeve.
can do that, you
Yeah.
could go into, you know, a vintage and get a brightly coloured shirt and a
Yeah.
Uniglow jumper and do that yourself.
Exactly.
You don't need to necessarily be spending £2,000.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It kind of reflects how people shop now.
Yeah.
Like not everyone can sadly afford.
But I think that's
that.
what also is inspiring, you know, to younger customers or potential customers.
sure she wants
don't
to
have the
inspire
money.
them.
You know,
Yeah.
Exactly. They think, oh gosh, I'm going down to Rocket and Brick Lane and I'm
Yeah.
going to get.
And I can now go and buy a sport polo shirt and put a
recreate
print
that
silk
look.
shirt
Underneath,
it,
yeah.
and you've got the same effect.
The styling's excellent. It's
Yeah.
actually because
It's
I'm not a
gorgeous.
print fan. I really wouldn't ever wear print, but it's making me think. Oh, actually, I would do some of those prints.
It's
broken
nice to
up
show it with
Yeah.
options, yeah, of how you could wear it. If,
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a pair of, you know, kind of quite tailored trousers and then just sling a webbing belt around it. And look, I just spotted that briefcase out in the floral
Great,
print.
isn't it?
That's great.
It is like watching a piece of poetry, isn't it?
She is amazing though, Jess.
I'm completely captivated by the colours in the stage set and the way it works with the collection. I mean, it's really beautiful. When you think that you're sat at a show waiting for it to start and waiting, then suddenly the bright lights come on and it's blinding. I mean, this is so subtle and beautiful.
Yeah, it's so nice that it's not like one, you know, period. I hate it when it's just like a take on like 60s.
It's that all in one.
It's nicely mixed up.
Yeah.
I remember one women's wear going backstage at some point, and she'd been trying to get this particular colour and she couldn't get it. It was in a kind of lace, and so she had backstage where they were making cups of tea. She was dyeing the fabric in
you can believe
lukewarm
that.
tea.
Yeah, amazing.
To get exactly the shade she wanted.
I think you can tell that she's still really excited by it. You know, she would never get bored. I think I've heard stories, people talking about, you know, she'll get there with all her friends and they'll be trying stuff on, like even now, you know, there's...
She has got a fondness for tropical though, hasn't she? Because I remember that wonderful collection, remember with the bananas and the monkeys?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Josephine Baker.
Yes.
Yeah, on acid.
Yeah, that was sensei with the ruffles and the cha-cha-cha.
And the monkeys.
Yeah.
And all the tassels at the end.
Yeah, I'm getting hints of that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this being a selling collection, Jack?
Well, I'm just getting desire coming across from me right now anyway, because this is me in 6 months.
Is it very difficult when you're buying to be objective, or is it brutally subjective? Because I was a buyer and I was always very subjective, but I was arrogantly thinking, well, this is what the customer wants.
Yeah, I think when I look at menswear, I have to give myself a different mindset, because part of me starts to take everything thinking it's just about me. So you do have to think of different demographics and different people.
But one of the things that I think you can do, and again, this is something when you try and behave as a buyer and not be subjective, is when you become over analytical about it.
Yeah, because you're not like, it's a different role to the press. So it's definitely, that's true, not to become over analytical about it.
Oh, I could do a nice sleep after that show.
And a cocktail maybe.
Yeah, definitely a cocktail in hand. That's the accessory.
That is really nice.
Great jacket, that one, isn't it?
I'm sort of thinking, you know, kind of early Buddy Holly even, and things, you know, that 50s sort of feel.
And what do we think about all the women's models in it? Is that valid at a men's show in this way? Quite a few women coming onto the runway.
I like it. It's actually evoking kind of more of a lifestyle, and it's telling like a story.
I agree completely.
I feel like I like the pace of this show, so I feel like I'm on a journey with them, and it's not, you know, fast and furious or high octane. You're on this smooth journey.
Look at that beautiful shirt.
Yeah. Do you think the audience are getting in the zone?
I hope so. We are.
That is such a good idea. A zip-up shirt jacket. So presumably you could wear it not tucked in as well.
Do you think
Gorgeous
the
colours.
wardrobe department for the fall will get
blue
one of
on the
those,
back. Sorry.
call in one of those silk bomber jackets for Gillian Anderson next season on the mood board?
What was great about that is it was black on the front and blue, really lovely kind of cerulean blue on the back.
I like the different levels of the catwalk too,
Yeah.
so they're kind of stepping up as if they're moving through a city or...
And like the makeup's very sort of dewy and balmy, and you really feel like you're where they are. It's very hot.
Yeah.
Like it was in London a couple of days ago.
You almost feel like you should be watching it through a gauzy screen.
Yeah.
Or beside a pool. Fanning yourself with a...
But those blue steps, they almost look like you were walking into a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that teal and the clothes that's really strong throughout.
I like the fact she's brought in so many double-breasted jackets. So, of course, just as I say it, it's all single-breasted, but
No, there's a few double-breasted,
Yeah.
and they're very loose.
Really nice.
And
Yeah.
actually, the shoulders look slightly too big, like they're falling. But it's just the looseness of the look that they want. That actually is a sunset in the back, painted in the background, isn't it?
It's kind of nice because even those jackets are double-breasted, but they're worn open. It was a bit like what we were saying with Zengo and that Stefano Pilati,
Relaxed,
that kind
isn't
of
it?
relaxed. Yeah. It's
Well, most
not
people
too
say that with
strict.
double-breasted, actually, most tailors would say really that's a style that isn't intended to ever be worn undone.
Undone, yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me a bit of those sort of Al Capone movies, you know, the mobsters always had the double-breasted jackets.
So
Well,
you could get more guns.
I think this finale just epitomises this is a very fresh offering, and we're not really going to see this in many of the other shows, are we?
No.
I love the colours. That sort of deep, dark terracotta
And the teal.
the teal, the dark teal.
And it's kind of a
And
lot
black.
more colour than what we've seen in the other shows, I think.
Do you think as a buyer as well, if you were buying a collection like that, you could almost buy any area of it, it all works, you can merchandise it
Definitely,
quite well,
definitely.
can't you?
That's what's another thing that's so clever about it as
Yeah.
well. It's completely interchangeable, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not one look I think that really stands out. Whereas I think for like other shows, you can look at it and you can be like, definitely that one, that one, that one, that one. This is what people are going to want.
Yeah.
This is kind of
A
like
collective.
anything goes.
Yeah.
An overall
yeah.
kind of.
Except for those zip-up satin shirt jackets, you know, with the collar.
Oh,
which
they're,
is-
they're, I mean, who wouldn't want?
to watch?
Who wouldn't
Here
want?
we
just a
go.
really,
We've got
really
the
nice.
red one coming up
Who
now.
wouldn't want one
Look,
of
there's a
those
black one.
satin
That one was
bombers?
gorgeous.
I mean,
The black
they are the
ones
first thing the high
yeah.
street's going
Yeah.
to jump on, aren't they?
And some of the print ones have got like a
Definitely.
bathing bell, you know, sitting on a beach.
And the print ones are really
Bathing
cool.
boy.
Yeah.
I mean, the print ones are
It
really
reminds
like.
me of when did Gucci and
There's a
Tom
DB,
Ford
yeah.
do that silk kind of bomber with the kimono print on before, that easiness of it.
But she somehow makes it look really sophisticated
Yeah.
and sort of going out, you know,
Yeah, it's
dinner,
very
red
luxe and
carpet, you know,
evening,
anything, yeah.
I mean, each model looks polished, don't
Yeah.
they?
And her colour palette looks so expensive. I think it really does. That red that we keep seeing, this really reminds me of a designer I used to work with. He always used to do like look for that kind of red. And she always used to say it has to be expensive red. It's expensive red.
Expensive red.
Fabulous. Yeah, sometimes neon can look
Let's see
cheap.
Moocher coming out.
Great, lovely shoes.
Should we give a little round of applause there?
Oh, it's nice that it's illuminated now as well. Those pull steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have we? Wonder if we're still in the auditorium and how the press are going to make their way out of there.
With difficulty.
Oh,
Stumbling.
Yeah.
it's for
Well,
the,
that
the
was.
streakers to not see.
Oh yes, the streaker at Dolce & Gabbana.
Oh yeah, Hilary. Would you like to? Any of the
Not that
any
I
of
have
those watching that haven't read this?
I don't have the
News.
inside track, so to speak.
Charlie
The
Porter gave a very
lowdown.
graphic description on Twitter.
But apparently, I mean, just towards the end of the Menswear Dolce & Gabbana show, this chap ripped off whatever he was wearing, probably a loose kimono, and
Loved it
pranced
that
onto the
much.
stage. And it was chased by security guards, but not before he'd been Instagrammed
In all his glory.
in all his glory,
Tweeted and vined.
and tweeted and Facebooked. But we've just noticed that it's not one of the photographs that the Dolce & Gabbana press office has released.
But the dailymail.co.uk.
Yes, had it, yes.
Well, they had their pixelated detail on the shop.
Yes, they did.
So
But-
how do we feel after the Prada show? I thought that was wonderful. I mean, I feel so sublime after that.
Yeah.
I want
it's
to put
really
the
good word.
streaker in everything from Prada.
Hilary! Let's come back to the streaker.
Oh, what
That's
is
great.
Prada? Yes.
I definitely it's like saying we all need to maybe move away from England and go somewhere hot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where we can wear clothes like that and just feel kind of like uplifted rather than the grey. And
Well, you were talking about summery and pools and stuff like that, but from that, I just got that, you know, that moment when you're kind of going out, the thing from day to evening and what you'd wear for the evening. And it's that idea that you know, so many of us are busy and we haven't got time to go home and get changed. I mean, I remember at one point I used to have accessories in a drawer at my desk because I knew I was always going out, so how could I freshen up? Actually, that was almost like, that gave me that feeling where you've had that transition from day to evening where you get ready to go out.
That's what it feels like. It feels like you've gone up and or you know, it's that time when you like have a Campari, you know, when it gets to that time.
Cocktail hour.
You've been sitting by the
not
pool
happy
all day,
hour.
and you've thrown on your clothes, and it's kind of, you know, it's that hot kind of frog cricket, like, you know.
I think it was clever as well because like the prints and everything look quite sort of day, because we were talking about like the Hawaiian prints, and that's something you wouldn't necessarily wear out, but because it was done in such sort of luxe fabrications and the palette was so, you know, beautiful, it had absolutely that evening wear quality. And there was something, what is it, I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair from that
South Pacific.
That's it, that's what I was thinking when I saw it. That was the kind of
I thought it looked incredibly sophisticated, but also relaxed. It wasn't uptight sophistication. It was a very easy, confident feel to those clothes. Like you could put them on and just, you could walk into any room, anywhere. And really...
We could be wearing that in Vons next year.
Yes, we could. Or this summer even.
I think that's what makes it look so luxe as well, is the fact that it is that type of person that, you know, lives that lifestyle where they don't need to do uptight, kind of uber polished. They're doing it in that more loose kind of way, and that it really is kind of like cocktails, you know, sunset cocktails. It's nice to see menswear as well be evening, but without being
all sort of buttoned up.
Tuxedos, you know.
Exactly.
Whereas so in women's we see evening, lots of variations, but men's it's difficult to do and still look masculine, and she's done that really well.
Also, I think that the formality of dressing has completely changed. The goalposts have changed so much because, you know, it's the idea of cruising. You know, nowadays if you go on a cruise, there's a certain type of cruise where people still get dressed for dinner and they go to the captain's table, but actually on the really luxury cruises, there's no dress code, and you know, you can wear your jeans if you want, but actually this is clothing if you want to dress for evening, but in that kind of comfortable, easy, fashion, contemporary way.
It's nice how she doesn't have, like, you know, the 12 tuxedos come out at the end, because I don't think men really want to look like penguins anymore. It's like you're forced into that kind of, you know, niche of that's how you have to, you know, that's what evening is, you know.
I wonder who's going to be the first star to wear that wonderful satin zip-up shirt on the red carpet.
Well, we should talk really about the ad campaign, because that was released recently with Ben Whishaw, Christoph Waltz, and Ezra, I can't remember his name, the guy. They've been in a lot of movies lately, like Django Unchained. Ben Whishaw was in Perfume and Skyfall, and they're quite young really for a Prada campaign. Usually they have quite mature actors or models, and I think that again in the ad campaign the stage set was very visible, you know, the backdrop to what they were conveying, and I think she said that she wanted 3 ideas of modern menswear to be portrayed from this campaign. But again, I mean, what I enjoyed most about that show was the mood, the spirit, and the colour palette of the backdrop was just phenomenal.
It was very desirable. And I also felt it was very approachable. It wasn't like scary.
No.
Say for a young guy who's perhaps just getting into fashion, or a guy in his 30s who thinks, I need a bit of a change of direction, you know, I need to get a bit more modern. It wasn't sort of like, oh, can I go there? It was like really inviting, like, you know, stepping
seductive
into a pool, you know.
You
want to let's swim.
It can be all ages, you know. If I was 16 again, I would wear it. You know, my dad would wear stuff like that in his 60s. It's kind of, it's not frightening. It's not like it, you know, they're going to come out in a leather hot pant and a crop top. You know, it's kind of gentler than that.
And we were having a chat yesterday during the Versace show about the issue of men's suits, and I wanted to ask you actually about, you know, when you do buy, there's so many brands who are doing so many suits, how on earth can you actually decide which? I mean, you can't go and see them all for appointments, can you?
To be honest, I oversee bespoke, so really that is kind of like an area of the market that I feel really passionately about, and now having known so much more about it, I would find it hard to kind of talk about ready-to-wear suiting in general, actually.
Yes.
because everything about it is about fit, and I think really you need to be involved with a tailor in that process to get an impeccable suit.
Do you get excited by the discipline of tailoring?
Definitely. I mean, it's such an incredible craft, and it doesn't have to be kind of old-fashioned. It can still be really current and modern. I think being able to bring your own references and talk through what you want with a tailor.
I think that Patrick Grant, for me, is probably one of the new school that's faithful to old school of all the new wave of designers that we have. And actually his show that he just did at Fashion Week was quite radical for him, and I loved that he did that. He didn't conform to to the path that he set. He almost just made it a lot more easier.
Yeah, because there was sort of some baggier shorts, and again the colours were amazing, sort of like vivid pinks and greens, and there was like a little print and everything. Yeah, it was quite a departure, but it was really lovely to see. I really liked that.
But it's a very interesting story about Patrick, isn't it? Because he bought Norton and Sons on Savile Row, so he is really the new face of Savile Row. So when all these trendier shops or not so whatever shops that aren't faithful or maybe mainstream retailers move into Savile Row, Patrick really has got a very valid position in modern menswear, hasn't he, from being there and taking on an old school brand.
And yet making it seem quite fashion still as well, and tapping into that. Because I thought actually this latest collection of his was a lot, I mean, he's normally much more sartorial, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then this was a lot more, fashion, so to speak. So it's interesting that he's doing that to diversify what he does and make it, seem broader.
But it didn't look like he'd done it for that reason. It didn't look calculated. It looked like he was feeling a certain mood in menswear, which is what sold it to me.
But you say he bought Edward Norton?
Norton and Sons.
Norton and Sons. Isn't that where Stella did her training?
It rings a bell. It rings a bell.
I thought it was Edward Sexton.
Oh, Sexton. Right. Sorry. That's the connection. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I think that was another thing about London. Just going back to London, the fact that when they announced that they're doing London collections, then they play on the whole Savile Row, or we've got a right to do menswear, we're Savile Row. But actually all these young talents that are mushrooming.
I really like that. I think it's really exciting because obviously you've got that, but then it does feel like there's so much more than that. So they're busy doing their Savile Row stuff, but then you've got tons of really great exciting new designers, which really nicely mixes it up.
Jack, do you feature much suiting and tailoring in your editorials?
No, not really. I find it more interesting another idea of coming at that. I think a suit is a suit, and that's how men dress. But I like the whole Christopher Shannon or
Jonathan Saunders,
which is ridiculous. It's kind of broken down. It's because I don't really wear suits. I like the sportswear aspect that lots of people are doing, or breaking it up a bit, and I think London's great at doing that, and everyone references that. I think Prada is much more grown up than I think maybe what we saw in London,
but then also the way she did a fairly conventional pinstripe suit, with that Hawaiian floral shirt. I mean, suddenly gave the suit, I felt, a whole new
different dimension. Would that sell it to you? Putting a suit jacket?
Yeah, no, I think that's the interesting thing that a stylist comes across. It's the way that you can kind of wear things and recreate that. I love pinstripe suits. I love pinstripe suits on men and women, and I like the whole androgynousness of it. And I like, that she always kind of does that. It's like what Christopher Kane sometimes does. He takes two things that you don't necessarily think about and then put it together, and it's kind of velvet brocade with leather, or denim and velvet, or
It's like Heston Blumenthal doing snails and ice cream.
It's kind of interesting to try and make that work. It's kind of really clever.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that with your editorials though? Do you ever take different brands and do that juxtaposition of materials?
Yeah, I think I try to.
Yeah.
I'll always try and think of something new, or come up with a story and kind of be like, this is the character. She's gonna wear denim, bleached denim with
white stilettos.
And a thigh-high boot, really go wild. No, just kind of make something new from it.
And Jack, when you're buying a collection like that, let's say, you do have a customer for the suiting. So even if you're seeing beyond the suiting in the show, you do have to satisfy that customer, don't you?
Exactly, and think about who that is. and obviously most men's requirements as well for, you know, day-to-day life and for working life. I just think, going back to what you were saying there as well, I think that what worries me a little bit within design is that people look at how well Miuccia's doing this, and it's like a formula to have this clashing element. And I think back to when I was at St Martin's with Louise, and that's something very much that's like encouraged. But if you look at somebody like, you know, Valentino, or somebody that's got, you know, had a very pure design aesthetic that is just about being beautiful, or just something being really elegant, it's kind of like that is a very London thing that's maybe taught here or encouraged here. It's like, okay, have this idea and then add a clashing element into it, and it's great, but it is also a bit of a formula as well.
It's funny you should say that, because Hilary and I do work on a lot of on judging panels for a lot of these international competitions. And the first thing I do when I get a portfolio to look at is you look where they've studied, you look what the favourite designers are, you look what magazines, you get little clues about them, but the formulas that come through, and then when you see the actual clothing, you've got the Gareth Pugh derivative, you've got
because it doesn't always work.
It's difficult.
I think St Martin's is very much in a kind of, because that's where I went to, and it was kind of very much like everything has to be like broken down, reversed, turned upside down, worn backwards. The proportion is always kind of very similar, and it's amazing to have someone like Jill Sander that's just shown, and it is just plain and simple, and you want to wear that, and it's nothing to, you know, like you've taken 8 ideas and you've bred this weird thing. It's
hybrid,
just pure.
I was going to ask you, Jess, actually, what is the pressure on a website like Vogue.com with menswear? Because women want to know about menswear. Are they expected to just go to GQ.com? You know, what's your responsibility really for menswear?
Well, we post the pictures as soon as they come in. So obviously, I mean, most people would probably come to us for women's wear, but we do have the full menswear coverage as well. So I guess, you know, it's whether you want to mix that up with the women's wear or just look at menswear, but I mean we have it all, so you know, do come to us.
But what I find though with Vogue.com is that on the daily news you do pick up on menswear a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, we report on it.
On a day-to-day basis, outside the show collections, I do think a lot of men would want to come and...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, Vogue.com, like the USP, we break the news. You know, that's what we do. We are the fastest, the first. We've been doing that, you know, forever. And of course, menswear is just as valid and important a conversation in fashion as women's wear. So that's absolutely, you know, we cover all news related to that as well.
And also there's the old-fashioned attitude, which is the women are directing what the men are wearing in their lives. So
quite, yeah.
Well, take that into consideration.
I suppose, I don't know. I mean, I tend to think, I imagine people would come because they're interested in the menswear as opposed to, I don't know, directing their other halves, but I don't know. You know, we just have a huge amount of information on the site, which is fantastic. I mean, you forget how much we have there. So.
And Jack, just to people that are watching, who do you work with now styling? You work with a lot of publications, don't you?
Yeah, mainly with Edward it was ID.
Edward Enninful.
Yeah, and American Vogue and Italian Vogue, and then he went to W, so now it's been a lot of W, but recently he's kind of been letting me kind of have my say with the men's on shoots, so we did Marcus one and a Stephen Klein, so mainly W. But
and are you doing any of your own work yet?
Yeah, I've been doing it as I've been with him throughout the time, but you know, the Marcus one is, you know, I worked on the men's and he did the women's, so we kind of worked together doing that. And then with the Stephen Klein one, it was, you know, he was with the women's and I worked on the men's, so it was kind of, you know, it's great of him to let me kind of get in and do that. I
think this might be a good time actually just to address the whole menswear publications that are coming out of London at the moment, because just recently a big sportswear brand got in touch with me, a streetwear brand, asking about where's good to advertise, and I don't really get involved in that kind of area, but it got me, I kind of did a bit of research for them, and actually there's some phenomenal men's publications at the moment. There's Port magazine that David Hellquist is doing from Days Digital, Ben Reardon's doing a great job at GQ Style, and there's a lot of newer web-based publications coming through. I think what William Oliver is doing with District MTV is quite interesting. I don't know whether you're familiar with it, but he was Nowness, and now he's there. And I just think that, again, with the whole world always watching London, the clues of that for me are these publications that are sprouting up. I mean, when Ralph Lauren did their event at London Fashion Week, they collaborated with Port magazines. It's quite interesting that the big brands are looking towards these smaller publications.
I think even there's that magazine B that's like almost, it's on
Beat.
newspaper. Yeah.
Well, Hannah, that's a huge success.
Yeah.
A phenomenal
and loving
success.
that, and everyone I speak to.
Big photographers are working with that publication.
Like Hedy Slimane and Saint Laurent advertisers.
Ryan McGinley.
These people, And I think, you see that just, Beyond Retro, whatever, on the side, and it's got all this, Sky Ferrero.
I think Supreme have had stuff in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very exciting when it's validated, the fact that people are investing in British fashion ideas, the big brands are coming and they realise. But I just think that internationally, London has got this fantastic portal for communicating outside the websites, these publications that are, some of them are quite bespoke. They're actually being produced in a very bespoke way. Yeah. Well, any other points you want to make about menswear that's happening? Obviously Milan's ongoing.
Yeah, fabulous Mucha Prada show.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing.
Do you want to mention, just before we finish, the Zegna show, the collaboration?
What was Stefano? I just thought it was
Stefano Pilati has just done
Yves Saint Laurent to Zango, and it was really beautiful, and like we were saying, that kind of undone kind of easiness of that, and the cuff rolled up, and the double-breasted suit worn open, and I think they said something like he used like 99 different tones of colour in the whole show, which is really nice that it's not constricted to that kind of, there's the 4 colours of the show, there's the print, he's kind of, and it was nice, it was really beautiful, I thought. Did a good job. What
would be really nice, just because you're here, Hilary, actually, is to maybe, that John Louis Scherer recently died 2 days ago, a historic designer. I mean, he was dressing Jackie Onassis, Sophia Loren, Raquel Welch.
Yes.
I just wondered if you wanted to say a few words for us to finish on about a tribute.
Well, I think even by the time I started covering fashion for The Telegraph, and that would be about 25 years ago, I think by then he'd already stopped showing, and it was even, 25 years ago, it was a brand really associated with accessories. I don't even know if there was still a perfume, but it was a name that resounded.
But didn't he work with Dior? And
well, he was part of that real old guard, along with Hubert de Givenchy and Yves Saint Laurent. He was. And also, obviously, Emmanuel Ungaro. They were sort of an era. And I remember once seeing the most amazing sketch he'd done of a wedding outfit. It was very sort of Anna Karenina with a white Cossack hat and beautiful. And I thought, I kept it for years, thinking if ever I get married for the 3rd time, that's what I'm going to wear. But it was not.
And weren't you recently awarded in the honours list? Have you picked up your...
Oh, no, not yet.
It was only announced. When you're going to be...
No.
What is it you awarded? The OBE? OBE. That's wonderful.
It was a real shock, because when the letter arrived on Her Majesty's service, and at first I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be deported. You've got 24 hours to leave the country. No, it's a huge thrill, and I mean, it's really amazing. I couldn't have done it without the industry. Oh yes, I'm going to have a small party, but I think they send you a letter at some point, just to let you know when the investiture is.
And have you thought about what you might wear for that?
No, obviously it'll be British.
No.
Maybe Prada Menswear?
Prada Menswear.
Satin blouson?
Pinstripe with a bit of floral, and obviously a hat.
Well, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandi.